This automation lets you create fully autonomous product ads such as this, or this. The way it works is really simple. You give it a product, it generates a video of that product, and then it automatically adds an animation on top that matches that product, which in return gives you a very simple, clean looking ad or demo video of a product, which you can use for your ads, website, socials, etc. And all of that with just one click with an N8N automation paired with the freshly launched Hera API, which means that you can integrate this with different, more complex automations, but we will go over that later. So if you're tired of creating ads manually or having to micromanage freelancers to do it for you and don't have 10 hours to spend creating 10 variations of your ads to do A/B testing, then let me walk you through the process of creating this automation from A to Z and a quick walkthrough of how it works. Okay, so the first step is we need to introduce a on-form submission right here. And I'm just going to call this AI video generator. Now for the form description, this is just going to be an informative thing. So let's just say, please to generate your video. After that, we're going to add a form element and let's just call this prompt and we can call it placeholder. And the placeholder right here, I'm just going to say product. Okay, now I'm just going to execute these steps so that we can take a look at what the form is going to look like. Very simple. You're just going to input the prompt, then you're going to submit it. And let's just go back to our canvas. After that, we're going to do a Gemini API request. You could theoretically do this with an action in app, but we're going to use a JSON script, which I'm going to show you in a second. So let's go to call HTTP requests. And in here, I'm going to change the method to post. Next, you're going to input the URL and I'm going to input it for Gemini 3 Pro and for generate content. Next, I'm going to enable send headers. I'm going to paste in the Google API key right here. Before I do that though, I don't want to show it on the video. I'm just going to create another parameter. This one is going to be called content type. And I'm just going to paste in the value, which is application/JSON. And the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to also add this send body function right here. We're going to enable that. And then we're going to specify the body using JSON. And I'm going to paste in the code, which you can find in the description right here of this video. Basically, this is the prompt that's going to allow us to tell tell Google VEO later on and Hera what it's supposed to actually generate, because we want to create this with the least effort possible. So we're going to input, even one word so that it later on in the end can input a proper prompt that, describes the object a bit more in depth. After that, we're just going to do a conversion code. So basically, I'm just going to run a custom code. This is fine, but then we also need to change the code itself. This is also going to be in the video description. So let me just paste it in right here. Just so that we know what's actually happening, I'm just going to rename this to convert. This is basically going to allow us to convert the result that Google Gemini gives us into something that is usable for the next step, which is Google VEO. And speaking of which, Google VEO, let's just add a new core HTTP request. It's going to be a very similar story to what we did with Gemini earlier. We're just going to set the method to post. This time, the URL is going to specifically lead to VEO 3.1 using the fields below. And I'm going to add two types of parameters. The name right here is going to be the same, and the value, now I'm just going to input the Google API key, but I'm not going to show it yet. Before I add the API key, also need to enable send body JSON using JSON. And now I'm going to input this code, which you can also find in the description below. This one is way simpler. This basically tells Google's API to actually use a prompt we generated in the previous node. Let's just rename this to video generation. Next, we're going to need to make sure that the automation waits for Google VEO for it to actually generate the thing itself. Before it moves on to the next step of the automation, it validates whether VEO actually created the video itself. Wait, I'm going to set it to, let's say 10 seconds is going to be fine. And it can be set to after time arrival for video processing. But that's not all yet, because this only tells us to wait. But then if Google VEO decides to suddenly take 12 seconds, it's going to screw up the automation. So the next step will be actually to create another HTTP request. The method must be get. And right here, you're going to input this URL along with the JSON name we had earlier in like previous node. We're going to enable sending headers, and right here, content type, application JSON, the same as we had previously. And then the API key, which I'm going to skip. And yeah, the API key is input. You can trust me on that. And let's call this VEO3 check generation status. Next, we're going to add an if function. So go to flow, add this if function. Before we move on to adjusting the settings inside of the if function, what I'm going to do is I'm just basically going to connect the false fucking pin, whatever you call this. I'm just going to make sure to connect false with the input on wait for video processing with VEO3. If we're still waiting for it to generate, then we're just going to be waiting 10 more seconds. You get the point. But in order to make it work for sure, we need to input, first of all, this will be need to set to true is equal to And now we're just going to use the previous node. So this is going to be the JSON.done so that we're all on the same page, guys. I'm going to rename this to VEO3 check if complete. We're going to do data transformation, edit field, change the name right here quickly to format so that we all know what this step is all about. The mode can be set to manual mapping. That is fine. And the next step is we need to add a field. We need to change the name to URL. And this string will basically allow us to get the generated video response. Now we're going to create another HTTP request. This one is going to be a download request. Let me already rename this. And we're basically going to just get the JSON URL, which is the URL to the Google video animation we just generated. Send headers, let's just provide the Google API. So using fields below, let me just pause the recording. Now that we've downloaded the Google VO file, we now need to upload it to Hera itself so that then we can basically add an animation on top of that recording we just generated with VEO. So plus, again, we can just use an HTTP request. We're going to be using it with the method called put. And then I hosted this on Superbase and we need to store the video somewhere. So I'm just going to use Superbase for the purpose. Just create a folder, input the link, the URL to that location, anywhere you want to save it right here. And again, I'm going to need to authorize. And with Superbase, we're going to need to authorize this with a special bearer key, but I'm not going to show it on the screen. Basically, it's going to be the bearer and it's going to be your code, whatever it is. Another parameter we're going to need to add will be the content type, and we're going to select specifically what type of extension at the end of the video we want to have. You can set it to MOV. I'm just going to use MP4 as it's like most commonly known. And on top of that, I'm also going to enable sending body. It's going to be an N8N binary file. I'm going to set the input data field to data. Okay. Now I'm not going to record the screen while pasting, but you get the point. I'm just going to input the bearer key from Superbase right here. And let's set the name to upload because we had a download node. Now it's the upload node. Let's go back. Now we're going to introduce the star of today's video, which is Hera's API specifically. And you can get the API key in the video description. But basically, this is going to be simple. We're just going to go to core, HTTP request, and in N8N, you need to select the method to post because now we're adding this. I'm just going to call this Hera video generation. Okay. Paste in the link, the URL right here. I'm going to enable sending headers. And then again, content type is going to be application/JSON. And then I'm just going to introduce the API key. So boom, I'm going to skip that for now. And then the next step is adding the JSON code. So JSON, we're going to switch this to using JSON itself. And it's going to be as simple as using this code, which I'm also going to paste in the video description. Right now, that's all you need to do for this step. As always, I'm going to introduce the API key right here. Next step is going to be same story here. This time we're going to need to wait for Hera to generate the video, the animation that's going to be on top of the VEO video. So core, wait, set this to 10 seconds again. This will be fine. And then let's just go back to Canvas. I'm just going to rename this to Hera, wait for video processing so that we all know what this step is about. And then we're going to go to core. We're going to set up a new HTTP request. We're going to select the method to get. And right here, we're just going to input the video URL, just as it says in the API docs. And what we need to do is we need to input the JSON video ID so that it tracks whether it is done or not. And then again, same story, content type, application/JSON, then the API key, boom, name, and then the API key right here. I'm going to paste it. Now let's do the exact same thing we did earlier. We need to add an if function, enable convert types where required. And we're going to set the initial value to success, okay, is equal to, and now we're going to paste in the JSON status. It's as simple as that. Now we're going to do the exact same thing right here. I'm going to need to connect false to the beginning of this wait for video processing node. And again, let me rename these nodes so you can see how the process really works. And now the last step is we need to somehow get the video to get to download it, right? So we need to create a new HTTP request and it's going to be called, just call this download final video. And then the URL is going to be this. And then all we need to do is we need to, again, prove that we have an API key for Hera. So we need to send headers. And in here, I'm just going to input the API key, but that's basically the last step. Now I'm just going to hit save so that we save this automation. Probably should have done it earlier. Now this was the process of creating the automation. So now that we have created this, let's give it a spin, huh? I'm going to use ChatGPT quickly to come up with 5 brand names for perfume. Let's do Valora. And now I'm just going to click execute workflow very quickly. And in the prompt, I'm just going to paste in the brand name, but that's not all. Let's say that we're going to input the brand name and the options. We said perfume specifically. So perfume, soft, luxury, elegant, femininity. Now let's take a look at the final video. I'm just going to paste in, boom, now the video is downloading. Now take a look at the ad it generated for us. This was actually kind of cinematic. So let's try something else now, okay? For example, maybe a dental product, toothbrush company name. Let's see what cooks. Dentix, electronic toothbrush called Dentix. This is better. Yeah, this is definitely better. The only issue here is you perhaps would need to describe it a bit more intricately in the prompt, your toothbrush, the one you're advertising, so that it actually shows exactly the product you want. But in this case scenario, I just wanted to show an example, right? So you get the point. Keep in mind that this is just like one of the things you can do with Hera API. This is actually not much, because what you can actually do is you could, for example, upload a spreadsheet right here with multiple different prompts that you've generated. For example, for instance, in ChatGPT with different variations. Now, the next thing you can do is you can create an automation that automates the process for a couple at the same time. So basically, I removed the initial node that made the form window pop up at first, and I just replaced it with when clicking execute workflow. And then in the plan node, I also adjusted this so that we already directly have the prompt, the product description input right here. White Christmas mug with Santa in anime style. Now, one more thing I'll do is I'll go to settings, and then an important thing is that you need to go to here, settings. This workflow can be called by, and you need to select this and select any workflow. Now I'm going to go to the second workflow I created. This one is very simple. All it does is when clicking execute workflow, it does this 3 times. It executes the workflow we have here 3 times. And you can use this using the function called, I think it's called call or execute sub workflow. Okay. Now what happens is, now what this does is basically I can click execute workflow and it will generate these for me. I could literally add hundreds of these instances and this would generate 100 videos for me. Of course, this takes time because it needs to generate them. Move on to doing different tasks and check once they're completed. Super simple. First, fine, looks good. Second one. No, this one covers up the mug, so it's not the best. And then the third one. Okay, so the main objective is that this is ultimately very scalable. Do 100 of these, you get 100 videos, pretty much. This does not require any human input. It does require human input, but it does not require human execution. Now, I'm really excited to see how you guys manage to integrate Hera's API into different N8N workflows, because the possibilities are endless. To start using Hera API for yourself, you can check the top link in the video description. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with using this new feature. Like, subscribe, and make sure to check out this video if it seems interesting to you. Have a good one.